recording? All right. So what I wanted to show you guys was a little more shaping on the face, but I did want to kind of get maybe some horns off, a simple kind of ear shape, and get some eyeballs in this. So of course I could select my object. I could go to 2 for edge mode. Remember, I've got tweak on, right, which is up here, but Q toggles you through those. And what I could do is I could easily start to bring some of these edges kind of in here, right? And some of them up to really start to kind of define that jawline more, right? So kind of bringing some of these edges up and in, and some of them out, will help you to start to define that jawline. I could easily start to bring some of these edges right here in to kind of define our lips a little bit better, right? So I kind of bring some of these in a bit. I usually will go to 1 for Vertex to also bring this 5-star right here down and in a bit. That way I can kind of start to create that nasal labial fold crease, right? That's that little crease in between your kind of cheek and your mouth, right? So we can kind of bring some of that shape in there a bit. I could easily start to kind of bring some of these up to soften that, right? So you see how some of these I'm just kind of moving the edges kind of in and away to just soften. And in some cases kind of bringing in a little bit to create a bit more of that kind of crease that we'd expect to have for our lips. So just kind of a little bit of shaping there, right? Just an edge mode that kind of helps a little bit more. I always bring some of these in a bit more. So you can always come in here and do some more shaping to kind of bring these forms better areas. Maybe move these down a little bit. So there's always that bit of shaping that you can do here to kind of develop and get these in better shape. Bring that down a little bit. There we go, right? So there's always that bit of shaping you could do like that. And that's just edge mode, right? Now in this case, I want to maybe start off with a bit of an ear here, then we'll do a horn. So I'm going to go to 3 for face mode, right? 3 for face mode. Now, in this case, I could use circle select to grab these, or I could just say, hey, I'm just going to work with faces. I'll move these back a little bit more so the jawline's a little more back on the head here. But I could easily just grab, say, a couple polygons back here, right? And I just hit Control E for extrusion. Middle mouse button to drag it out a bit. Maybe E for rotate, right? Middle mouse drag to view rotate. R for scale, maybe a little bit of mouse button to do uniform scale. Maybe W for move, right? And I can just kind of rotate or move or scale from different views, do another extrusion, right? Control E. Middle mouse drag, right? R for scale, middle mouse drag to scale it in to make it smaller. Then maybe hit Q to go back to my tweak tool. Maybe 2 for edge mode. And you see I can kind of go in here and round off some of the shape a little bit. So it's not quite so bunched up. But you also see how I kind of basically have kind of a major kind of ear shape for this. Now I could, of course, also just grab these here. And you can either use inset or extrude. It's kind of up to you what you want to use. If I did extrude, right, Control E, middle mouse click. Then I can hit R for scale, middle mouse click drag, and I can bring that in. That's what inset does also. Then maybe one more extrusion in. R for scale. And since this is kind of more of like a troll ear kind of thing, I don't think we're going to worry about creating kind of the spin in arc. But you could pretty easily just kind of come in there and just extrude out a couple, right? And then extrude in a couple here. Ryan, can you get the door for me? Thank you. And those extrusions can just basically give you that kind of nice little bit of extra form there, right? So you can see how this is just some edge shaping, right? To kind of get these shapes better. The nice thing is that'll be in the video, so you can always watch these videos to get some of the shaping pointers, right? And of course, we can extrude these out. And that was just that, extrusions, right? In this case, I'm going to save this as my newest guy, so I'll just kind of, I'm going to do a little bit more, but get myself a version that's saved that's new. 8, there we go. And then, of course, a horn is very similar, right? I can go to 3 for face mode. Also, if you want, remember we can clean up this 3-star up on the head, right? Remember how we kind of did it for the jawline? You could easily take these 3 edges, hit delete, dissolve edges, and then you could always go Alt-C for loop cut, put a loop in there for the eye, then go to vertex mode, just like we did last time, right? Select those 2 vertices across from each other. Remember, you should be connecting vertices that create a 5 and a quad. So I'll right-click, connect vertex pairs. And then I can do another loop cut through here, and you see how this gives us more to shape the chin and the jawline. And then, of course, you see how now there's a 6-sided here, and it just looks like there's a missing edge there. So in 1 for vertex mode, I can grab those edges, right-click, connect vertex pairs. And you see how I kind of minimized that star that was up there? I gave myself a little bit more in the corner of the eye for shaping. And I gave myself a little more through the jawline. And remember, that's just like what we did for the lower jaw here, right? The kind of right here on a model in the last video, right? So these are just little tricks that can allow you to optimize, give yourself a little more localized geometry in some areas here. Get rid of some stars that aren't really killing you, but aren't necessarily helping you either. And now, of course, I can go to 3 for face mode. And I can maybe grab those 4 faces there. And you can use circle select to do that, of course, as well. Control E for extrusion. Middle mouse drag. R for scale, middle mouse drag. E for rotate, middle mouse drag to kind of rotate it a little bit like that. And then I can extrude again, Control E for extrusion, middle mouse drag, maybe E for rotate, middle mouse drag, probably R for scale for middle mouse drag as well. Now if I want to adjust some shape right now, I can, right? Go to 2 for edge mode, Q to bring up my tweak tool, although if you want to use move, that's fine as well. And so I can come in here and I can just quickly and early on, before I get too far into that horn, I can just do a little bit of tweaking of the shape to get it a little more uniform and rounded. I can go back to 3 for face mode, select those 4. Control E for extrusion, middle mouse drag. Maybe E for rotate, middle mouse to do view rotate. Maybe a bit of R for scale, right? Remember, it's all right here. Remember, if you hold down middle mouse button and drag, you can do things like view rotate, view move, view extrude. Maybe a little bit of E for and middle mouse button for view rotate that way. Maybe W for move, middle mouse button there. Control E for extrusion again. And middle mouse drag, right? Did somebody knock at the door? Ryan, can you check again? Please? No, for the door. So E for rotate, R for scale, maybe one more extrusion, Control E. R for scale, middle mouse button. No, the door. Is anybody out there? All right, never mind. Somebody was knocked, I guess. All right, never mind. Thank you, Ryan. So, you'll notice how you can make a horn. Sorry about that in the video, you know, teaching out of school. That was just extruding out, right? So a horn was just a bunch of extrusions, but I moved, rotated, and scaled as I went along to kind of create some bends in the shape. And remember, you can always go back, 2 for edge mode, double left click to select an edge loop, E for rotate, middle mouse button for drag, view rotate, right? And you see how I could easily adjust this stuff a little bit later on to get the shape even more the way I want to. But you also notice I scale as I went to make it smaller, right? And so now I have a horn for our guy, right? For our character. So you can see doing an ear and horns pretty straightforward, right? It's just extrusions to create more limb or appendage structures. And the extrusion even works for kind of creating this little inset here. Now the last thing I wanted to do to finish this up for you guys and then we'll basically be done with the body, and we can start to add armor next week, is I wanted to add the eyeball. Now, we'll leave it as part of this object, and we can always separate it next week. But there is a tool right over here, right above the extrude tool. This is actually the new part. Everything else is stuff like extrude is extrude, right? Shaping is shaping. And it's just, hey, you could do these things, and if you use this extrude tool this way and move, rotate, scale this way, you can get shape. But there's this tool right here that's kind of like a wireframe of a primitive with a plus. If I hold down left mouse button on that, so if I hold down left mouse button on there, you'll notice there's options here, including add UV sphere. So remember, this is just hold down left mouse button on the add primitive tool right here. If you hold down left mouse button on it, brings these options up. I can go to add UV sphere. Now, I don't want my sphere to be that dense, so you see how there's properties up here at the top? So I can go to segments and say, hey, let's make this be 12, and then the rings be 12, right? So set up segments and rings as 12. And you'll notice what it does when we're in here is if I left-click drag, you see how it's kind of drawing out a sphere shape? So you just left-click drag on the mesh. If I hold down Alt, it centers it. If I hold down Shift, it makes it uniform. I can let go and then drag out again with Alt and Shift still held down. And that creates a sphere roughly in that area. It's cool because you can kind of put this anywhere, right? I can put some spheres on the shoulders, right? It's kind of a neat tool, though. Now I can go to 3 for face mode, right-click to shade smooth, because those have to have the shade smooth added. But you notice you can do shade smooth from face mode on specific faces. Now I just need to kind of maybe scale it down a little bit, right? And it's part of this object, so mirror and subdivision are already on. R for scale, middle mouse for uniform scale, E for rotate. Now remember, we have view rotate, but if you left-click drag in the very center here, right? Not one of these handles or this outer one or middle mouse, but the very center here, you could do kind of trackball, where it kind of keeps it on the center, but you can kind of, rotate it around like a ball. So you can easily adjust that. W for move middle mouse button. R for scale middle mouse button. And you can easily get your eyeball in there. Maybe E for rotate middle mouse button. There we go. You don't ever want it to fully look straight forward, right? You want it to actually be off just a little bit. And then, of course, I can go to 2 for edge mode. Q for tweak, and I can easily start to bring some of these edges kind of around there in to get that shape around the eyeball better. We'll eventually separate this off into its own object, but for now this will work pretty well for us. And now we've added an eyeball, but it's technically not connected. So if I select the face and then I select linked, right? Remember, select linked. I've set it to a different quick key than the default, but there we go. And now we've got our eyeball in there. All right, so that's it. That's kind of some of the new stuff I wanted to do for you today. That's it.